Real World News TV. What's going on, guys?
Hey.
Nothing much. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Real World News TV with myself, Reggie Kearney, my boss lady, Tony Breedlove, I guess commentator, Derek Terry.
Yeah, I'm filling in.
No, you ain't filling in for nobody, okay? And Sharon Patrick, she's not with us tonight. And want to apologize to everyone for us not being here last week, but we had a couple emergencies, so we had to forego the show last week. But I mean, we got a good show tonight. It's a lot in the news throughout the country. So, but one thing we want to focus on tonight was something that's been going on in our country for the last 3 weeks, and it's dealing with the state of Virginia, the state for lovers. I guess they're loving everybody down there right now. And we won't go and do like the New York Post said, Virginia is for losers. Okay, they're still for lovers. But got some real issues going on down there with Northam and with the Attorney General. We won't really address the situation with the Lieutenant Governor tonight because we really want to focus on white Americans' obsession with blackface. Okay, that's what we want to focus on today. So, Derek, what's on your mind, man?
Well, I just want to make sure I clear the air. As although the title somewhat appropriate, I look at it as some white people's obsession because I have a lot of white friends who, matter of fact, none of my white friends have an obsession with blackface. So I'm fortunate, but I know that there's people that have to encounter that. And we also got some black folks. They might not have an obsession with blackface, but they have an acceptance of blackface. So I'm going to talk about them too. So, definitely going to talk about
Beyonce,
them.
Like Queen
like
Bee.
Who?
Like Queen Bee, Beyonce.
For me, I just don't see how it's accepted. They can say what they want. It's not. So we'll talk about that as well.
Right. Tony, what's up?
What's going on, Reggie Kearney? How are you, sir?
I'm hanging.
This topic, oh my God. I really do my best by not cussing. I really do. But, when you guys have stuff like this, it's tough for me. It is really, and you know what? And like Derek had just said, I have white friends too. So yes, it is some people who have this obsession. I'm not going to say all, but I do want to clarify that as well, because everybody doesn't feel that way, that they could step over the line, So yeah, that's what's going on with me. So I'm done. I'm going to leave it to you and Derek. And I'll jump in somewhere.
Yeah. And I think what some people don't fail to realize is that, and I had a discussion with Brother Kearney although we look at blackface really as another symbol of racism. So a lot of people say, hey, we should get over it, but it's kind of hard to get over something that if you constantly reminded of it. And I don't foresee it happening in my lifetime. Maybe I'm hoping my son's future, as he gets older or his kids, but I'm originally from Alabama, so there's a lot of racist symbols that are still there, just like there are in Virginia. And the fascination for me when I look at some people's fascination with blackface, I'm just curious of, by doing it, what do you think it promotes? By doing it, what do you think? It's almost like it's okay, we're just joking, when it's really equivalent to anything that we've been experiencing in our lifetime when we talk about racism and those negative symbols of racism. Whether it's driving me, I get pissed driving down Jefferson Davis Highway. That's just me personally. I don't like going across the Wilson Bridge, but I have to. Those are named after known races. If you look at Wilson, he had no problem putting the birth of a nation in the White House, knowing exactly what it did. But that's just my opinion. But we still praise, or we don't still praise, but you have states that still praise people that are known racists.
Like tonight in D.C. tonight, they're having a meeting at Woodrow Wilson High School tonight to discuss removing Wilson's name from that as the name of the high school. But getting back to the blackface thing, it's been so commercialized. If you remember coming up in the South, you saw them little what do you call the guys who ride the horses in blackface? The jockeys. You saw the little yard South, everybody that was, it was based at white homes. You saw the entrance to the driveway or in the yard, the little jockeys, the blackface jockeys, with the big lips and stuff, But, I think, and going back to something you said there, is America taking it as a joke? I really think that's what some people are thinking, because you look at Katy Perry. She has had a line of shoes out for a couple of years that had big lips on top of it. Kind of, if you look down onto the shoe, it looks like a blackface shoe. You look at the coat, Gucci, what Gucci did as far as the sweater was concerned. And we, as African Americans, we like to support Gucci and Prada and all these other companies, but we have a lot of black designers out there who aren't getting our support because we want to go to someone like Gucci who does a blackface sweater. Then you have a picture of Beyonce, and I would expect better out of Beyonce, but sometimes once you start making a whole lot of money, it's kind of hard to see the forest for the trees. She has on a coat that has a black face on the front of the coat. Man, she knows good and daggone well she shouldn't be promoting nothing like that. So where is her thinking at? Someone who's very intelligent, and her and her husband, as African Americans, when she's walking around with a coat on that had from Gucci, a Gucci coat on with a blackface on it.
But wait a minute though. But see, I don't even think that Beyonce would even think that this was wrong. I really don't, because I don't think that a lot of people who have that kind of status and that kind of money would really think anything of it. Because don't you think that they have lost something in translation when they start earning that kind of money, when there's that kind of celebrity, they think that they can do anything?
Well, I think it boils down to ignorance myself. I think there.
Well, I think that there's really two sides to it, and this is just from my perspective. I don't know if there would have been such an uproar about blackface had the instances from blackface happened by white people, because these are things that already been in production. So it's not like all of a sudden it came out after the fact. Now it's brought up in the news. As Black people, we're outraged, but I don't know whether or not that outrage was there before the governor did what he did, the AG did what he did. I think the person down in Florida, the AG or the state's attorney, did what he did with blackface. So it's kind of one of those things where when you look at Beyonce, I don't know where her angle is at. Beyonce doesn't do things by accident. Her stuff is deliberate. So maybe she's doing it to bring about awareness. And I've heard people say, well, what's the big deal? Black is beautiful. I say, yes, Black is beautiful, but how are you depicting it? There's a big difference. I'm like, you have to look at the historical context of blackface.
Exactly.
So it was mainly put out to mainly show the rest of the world that Black people were lazy, buffoonery, ignorant, sexual predators. That's how it was depicted. So if you're looking at an image from the past, how can you not think it's going to translate to the future? It's like the N-word. I don't use the N-word, but there's nothing positive about the N-word. Terms of endearment, no, to me it's a term of stupidity. That's just my personal opinion, because I don't see the purpose of using it. They used it, well, we're going to use it now.
Right, but change the connotation of it, so it means that it's like you said, a term of endearment, or it's a greeting, or it's like, oh, I got you back. No, come on. The word is what it is. It was created for a purpose, and the purpose was to downgrade African Americans, Blacks. That's what the purpose of that word was. There was nothing that said positive in that particular word, and nor is the production of blackface.
Well, I'm looking online right now, and Beyonce wore that coat in 2015 to the NBA All-Star Weekend. Okay, during the NBA All-Star Weekend. Okay, so I mean, something that's been out there for a while. But see, this is the thing. I kind of agree with Derek on that. I'm not a Gucci wearer, and I'm not into all the fashions and stuff. Okay, so a lot of times I'm not going to see a issue that involves the blackface unless it comes up with the guy from Florida who got caught up, the elected official in Florida who got caught up. And I think that's for a lot of people. We don't really come face to face with it until it hits the news, just like with Northam. But then ever since Northam has come out, you've seen that all the major universities have come out, especially in North Carolina. From East Carolina University, University of North Carolina, have gone back into their archives and they found in their yearbooks where blackface was prominent in their yearbooks. As recently as the early '80s, they were doing stuff with blackface on it. So like I said again, and then you see pictures from time to time of white fraternities on these major university campuses using blackface to portray a known acting musical group, things of that nature. So it's been out there, but we really don't come face to face with it until we see it on the news. It's not something we see every day.
But let me ask you guys this question, because it was kind of coming up in my mind as you were saying that this has been going on forever and ever. But even in the case of Northam, when he said, oh, that might not be me in those photographs that you're seeing. First he said he apologized, he knew it was in poor taste, blah, blah, blah. Then he said, oh, it's not me, right? But then on the same heel, he turns and he says, but I do remember dressing up like Michael Jackson and painting my face. Do you think that it is acceptable if someone says, well, I was going to a Halloween party and I wanted to be Michael Jackson or Diana Ross, and I just wanted to be in pure costume and I colored my face? Is that acceptable?
For me, it's not. That's just me. I mean, you see Megyn Kelly got fired. You see Megyn Kelly got fired for her dumb answer, okay?
Exactly.
Trying to make it acceptable. You can't make it acceptable, okay? It's a big fascination with racism, okay? It's like Derek said, it makes us look, it puts us out of character as being a shiftless type of person. And that is where I just don't appreciate blackface, okay? I don't care. You can spin it any way you want to spin it. I just don't get down with blackface. And I find it very offensive.
Yeah, and when I look at it, I didn't mean to cut you, I'm sorry. But when I look at it, Michael Jackson doesn't, when you look at him, you don't think a racist figure. We know it. I think for people to put on blackface, and either they're ignorant, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, either sincere ignorance or conscientious stupidity would allow someone to think that they could dress up as blackface and it's not going to have a negative impact on black people. Me as a kid, I liked Superman and all that, but I didn't put on a Superman cape and all of a sudden painted my face white and said, hey, I'm Superman, I can be black. But, when I think of what's going on nationally with this, it is troubling. It is disheartening, even with the governor. Do I believe him? No. Basically, you just upset because you got caught. Now why it took so long to come out, I really don't know. But I guarantee you, most colleges and universities that were segregated had some form of racism going on their campus. Yeah. Whether it was exposed or not exposed. And you best believe once it became integrated, it heightened. And then it maybe subsided after a couple years.
Now, what would make you think that this university all of a sudden realized that in one of their yearbooks years back that there was blackface to go hunting for it?
Well, I think it was a political move. You remember that week, that a couple of days before, he had made some comments concerning third trimester abortions. Okay, that got a lot of conservatives upset, and it was right after that these pictures surfaced. I think somebody had been holding them for a while, knew they were out there, and saw it was a time to try to get back at the Democrats, and that's what they did. And so I think if he hadn't come out so strong for third trimester abortions, it probably would never came up. Okay, it'd probably still be under the rug, but it's out from under the rug now. And I agree with Derek. I don't believe the guy. Because anywhere you spend it, you can't spend what he just did. And then he wants to stay as governor so he can
right his wrong. That's
right
what
his wrong.
Is. Yeah.
And and try to have all these sensitivity classes and speeches and things of that nature. Man, that's a bunch of bull to me.
You know what? You can't teach someone to not be a racist or prejudiced. You can't teach someone not to change or to change something that they have been ingrained with. You can't teach people to all of a sudden change their spots when they've lived under it for all their lives. And you know what? I want to add something though, and the reason why I would not believe Northam, because I sat there and I looked at his press conference, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, here's a yearbook that has been in your home, under your roof, for a number of years. And you mean to tell me that you can say 1 minute, well, his wife had already agreed that, yeah, the yearbook was in the house, in our home. And then he tells the nation, tells the public, I didn't even know where the book came from. I didn't even know it was in our home. You've got to be either just stupid and think that blacks are stupid to believe that. I mean, you keep changing your story. Either it was you or it wasn't. Either you knew about it or you didn't. Either it was in your house or it wasn't. Something. At least your wife is upfront enough to say, yes, it's been in our house for years.
And I think some part of it, to some degree, I can, I don't believe I'm saying this, I can understand what he's talking about, because I have books in my house that I haven't seen in years. And I may see a picture like, wow, I don't remember taking that picture, and I have to think about it, right? I said, oh yeah, I remember it now, but it's nothing that's damaging, anything like that. So he saw a damaging picture that he may have to think, wait a minute, did I really take this picture? And rather than say, you know what, it's me, I made a stupid mistake. Can't really say as a kid, just say as someone that attended college, and part of my upbringing, and it may have been racism. He may have been brought, and he mentioned white privilege, where right. I can't recall if he said he knew he was born into white privilege, or he didn't understand that he was in white privilege. Regardless of
knew.
He wanted,
he knew.
And when you get to the point to where you have a yearbook, you see damaging stuff in there, a lot of times it's best just to own up to your mistake. A lot of people are more willing to forgive when you acknowledge it. I can't knock him for something that he did years ago. People make stupid mistakes. It happens. But without going too deep into politics, Democrats and Republicans, they have it on both sides. And I'm a Democrat, but they have it on both sides. And before, I don't know if someone's going to chime in on Facebook land, but I really wish they would understand the ideology of Republicans and Democrats. Because first they say, well, we freed the slaves, Republicans. And I said, look, you're talking about an ideology. It doesn't matter what your party is. It's what your vision and what right. your principles and morals are for that particular time. So to say that all Republicans are racist is a false statement. To say all Democrats are racist is a false statement. But to say that some white people are fascinated with blackface, that's a fact. It's not an opinion, it's a fact.
It's a fact.
Now, I can't say all, because that's not, but it's a fact. And when we look at the governor and what he did, it was better just to acknowledge the fact. And I think people have been a little bit more forgiving. I personally wouldn't call for his resignation.
Really?
Because of that, but now that he's flip-flopping, it's kind of hard to say.
Yeah, I would have.
Yeah, I wanted his resignation, okay? Because when you step out into politics and when you're the face of the community, you have to be held accountable at a higher level, okay?
Uh-oh, did we lose Reg?
I think he paused.
Yeah, he froze.
Yeah,
Reg, you're gonna have to go back out and come in.
While he's gathering his, I'll just piggyback off his thought. But I look at it like this: if his current policies, have not deemed to be racist or anything like that, then I don't see the issue. It'd be different if he was the one guy that was running against him, Stewart, or whatever his name is. Yeah. Where his policies would be geared towards racism.
Right.
Towards, you just know it, where Northam hasn't exhibited that or demonstrated that. And I think that's why a lot of the Black religious leaders in Virginia have supported him, only because they don't see the behavior in which he exhibited 30-something years ago in current policy.
Right. Because and I thought even 30 years ago, as smart as this man was to be able to further his education and go out there and get a degree, and I think he was in medical school, wasn't it? He was in medical school. Mm-hmm. Talking about a smart individual, okay? And 30 years ago is still not a long time ago. These issues were there then. They didn't just come up now, and you had to have known something of what you were doing was bad behavior. You had to. Otherwise, these things wouldn't have come up. If you make yourself up in blackface, you know that there's something behind that. Otherwise, it wouldn't be funny to you. You wouldn't do it.
And I think the other thing, you look at 30 years ago, and I guess I'm showing my age, but you remember the advent of technology. I think we were still in Polaroids, maybe, or the cameras you had to take to Kodak, whatever. So it wasn't like people walking around with a camera when they go to a party. Hey, I'm gonna bring my camera with me. So where now, people bring this.
Exactly.
We're instant camera, and you have social media. So there's probably thousands of other blackface instances out there that we're just not going to know of because there wasn't any proof or any pictures or anything like that taken. So, the people look at 30 years ago, it was happening, it probably was happening a lot. But it was difficult to report.
Right. It was difficult then, but it wasn't so difficult that you didn't get some snapshots, and you didn't get it where people didn't remember now that this was done.
Like I said,
30 years ago was a long time ago.
Yeah, but you remember, if you're at a party, a lot of people just didn't say, hey, let me bring my camera with me to the party. Back in the 80s, maybe y'all can tell me because I was, probably 12 or something like that.
And then I won't even tell my age.
When you went to a party, you say, "Hey, let me go get my camera real quick."
But one of the things was we wasn't even exposed to it back in. I was in college in the 70s. I don't know if you were born then, Derek, but this is the thing.
Yeah, he wasn't.
When we went over to UNC for parties, we went to Black student government parties at UNC. Okay, I went to North Carolina Central. Okay, so we never even intermingled with the white students on the white campus. Okay, even when we went to North Carolina State, we were partying with other African Americans on North Carolina State's campus. So yeah, we didn't never see it. That's why I say when I saw when I started really seeing blackface, other than seeing the yard jockeys, it was later on in my adult life when pictures started coming out and controversy started coming up about people being, using blackface as a way to express themselves at parties and things of that nature. So I think every time when it comes up, it's a shock to everyone. If you look at the actions of the state delegate down in the older lady down in Virginia, how she was taking it, it's a reaction because you don't see that often. So when people see it, it's like a shock to them that, wow, this person was actually maybe not a racist, but gosh, he was portraying racist tendencies by painting himself in blackface.
And you know what? And then it takes me to, you remember when we did I don't know if Real World was on air then, but we did a show under, I think maybe Hot Topics, and we spoke about Rachel Dolezal. You remember her? The woman who, portrayed herself as a black woman. Although this woman was doing, work for the black communities. She was a part of the NAACP's chapter, and she was doing her thing for the, uplifting the black people. Do you know, I was so offended. And that to me was just as bad as being in blackface. She could have painted her face as far as I'm concerned. And it offended me. It offended me. Although she was doing things for the black community, it offended me that she would portray herself as a black woman.
Well, she said she felt more black than she felt white.
So does it mean that folks who put on blackface and costumes, like say in the instance of Northam, did he really think he was Michael Jackson when he painted his face?
No, he should have thought he was a fool when he painted his face.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, and I can't remember her name, but the instance that you talked about where she darkened her skin and changed her name, you still could have helped out the black cause by just being you. And
exactly.
I don't, there's certain things that you never can be if you are not. If you are not black or African American, you can never be black or African American. If now this may be controversial. You're a man, you're gonna stay a man. You don't care how you always gonna be a man, or vice versa. But it's what you're willing to deal with. And when I look at, even with the transgender thing, I always say to each his own. Mm-hmm. But they're not trying to hide it. But they're not trying to hide it. See, in her case, she was trying to hide it and use it for her benefit.
Exactly.
That's where I have a problem.
Exactly. Because like you said, she could have fought the black cause all day long, all night long, with her blonde hair, blue eyes, and her fair skin. I wouldn't have had a problem with that. Yeah. But what I have a problem is that you portray yourself as a black woman, and you make up stories that are along the line of some people that would consider, being in a I don't want to say the wrong thing, in an urban area, and you're eating collard greens and you're eating this, she portrayed herself to our suffrage. And that's what I had a problem with, trying to downplay who she was instead of being who you are. And just fight for what you believe in. We can do that. That's the world we live in. But it was, to me, a mockery of black women who actually do have struggles, who actually do get involved in their communities and stand up for what is right for black men and black women. That's the problem I had with Rachel Dolezal. Yeah.
So, where did we go from here? Northam was talking about doing racial sensitivity classes and courses and trying to bridge the gap between the black community and white community has been divided over this, to try to figure out something about it, but it seems like every time we have an issue like this in our community along racial lines, the first thing that comes up is it's dealing with racial issues. You know, how to.
I think if anything, it's been able to open up a dialogue about racism. I guess the fascination with blackface, I can't answer that because, I don't have a fascination. But what I will say is that I have a fascination with discussing racism and how we can end racism. And, I get a little offended when people say, hey, you need to get over it or everything is a racial issue. And I'm like this, it wouldn't be a racial issue if race was involved. And, I grew up in a multicultural society, but, I'm pro-black, but I'm not anti-white. And I always tell people, I'm not anti-white, I'm not anti-Asian, whatever. We're all, at the end of the day, human. I don't care how you cut yourself, we're going to bleed red. I don't care where you're from. But I think for years, and I fault the school system, only because we're not teaching kids the true history of this country. And that we didn't come from, our ancestors didn't come on the boat and get off the boat and say, yeah, boss, I'm racist. We just didn't. We just didn't. So it's hard to say that, we didn't invent racism in the United States. That I can assure you. We did not. It's kind of hard to invent racism when you're taken away from your family. And in some cases, you have to have intercourse with your mom or your sister so you can build up a strong slave. We didn't invent all that. Those are things that those kids, all kids really need to know, because what happened, we have what you call patriotic history. And honestly, it pisses me off because you shouldn't have to go to college to learn what you should already learned in high school. And had it not been for Google and all that, most kids wouldn't be able to look at it now. So I had to read books and listen to stories from family members about racism. And for people to say, hey, you should get over it, this shouldn't offend you. And I'm thinking, wow, it's easy for you to say because you haven't been offended. You haven't, your people been oppressed. So, that's where I have an issue with those who don't think that blackface is an issue. But, I know more people that think it's an issue, fortunately for me, versus that don't think it's an issue. I'm sorry, I said that right. I don't think it's an issue.
But then one of the other problems you got too, you got African Americans, like you said earlier, who accept it. That they don't have a problem with blackface. Okay, they feel like it's no big deal.
It goes back to the house field.
they
house field mentality.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know where all of this ends up with trying to conduct what they call in corporations is sensitivity. I'm trying to actually delete comments. I'm sorry, you guys.
Yeah, please do. Like we got getting trolled. Haven't been trolled in a long time.
Hey, I'm just reading. I was like,
yeah.
I'm not even gonna respond because my sexy wife is upstairs, and I'm gonna leave it at that.
All right now.
I'm not responding either.
And I'm gonna leave it at that. So
yeah. So, but I don't know. It's crazy, these issues keep popping up. Seeing that's one issue after another issue, every week, something that's coming up, and I agree with you. I think both parties, Democrat and Republican Party, they both got a lot to answer for because it's going on in both parties now. And I see more coming out before this whole thing is over with.
You think so?
Oh yeah, I do. I think there'll be a couple more people come out.
Now I'm just curious, what's going on out there on your side of town, and what it's, is the topic hot, or just is a one-day story, move on to the next story? Are they still talking about it out your way?
In Vegas?
Yeah.
You know what? People aren't talking about it because you're talking about a state that is a red state, and they don't talk about it. They just don't talk about it. And quite a few of my coworkers watch the show, so I know that it'll be a topic tomorrow when I go to work. And, you know, I don't mind talking about all of this because that's how you begin an understanding as to why certain things are still offensive to the African American community. You know, I don't mind talking about it. I want to have that conversation because that's why we're still in this mess that we're in, because we don't have the tolerance to sit down and listen. Not just a matter of talking, but listen. You've got to listen to why certain things are still offensive and why we can't get over it.
And I think the other part to it, and I have a lot of Jewish friends, and as I, you know, read the news today as well as yesterday, where, you know, there was some very insensitive towards Jewish people, and they got highly offended, as they should. But when I look at Jewish people as a people, and I look at us as a people, we, to some degree, we sometimes are our worst enemy, meaning Black people. It's because we call out our own people when they're doing wrong. And where I know a lot of Jewish people, they stick together because of a lot of things they've been through. And their oppression is really no different than the oppression that we've dealt as a people.
You're right.
And, you know, a lot of people, they really want to get historical. Look at how the NAACP was started. And when you look at how it was started, then you can get a sense of the feeling how we have a common bond. The disconnect is where us as a Black people, we kind of want to stray over to what side is good for me rather than sticking to the heritage and the culture of the people. And what happens is when there's highly offensive things that are said towards Black people, we don't have that outrage that we should.
Yeah.
Outrage. Because we do stupid stuff. You know, we're gonna, you know, we talk about blackface, we're gonna go on that, well, I don't care about blackface. But then I mentioned earlier, the N-word. You know, I don't personally, but I don't hear Jewish people calling each other the racial insensitive names to one another. I don't. But we as a people, we keep, and you know, that's where, you know, I don't allow my son to say it, so don't say that word. Because to me, it's highly offensive. And I think until we come together to join and do what's right for us, how can we expect other ones to really respect us if we have a hard time respecting ourselves?
Right. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, and that's, you know, and that's one of the most disappointing things I see that happens in our community, the lack of respect that we have for ourselves. You know, we're very accepting of dumbness in our community and dumbing down in our community, but you know, it doesn't bother us, you know, and that's sad that it doesn't bother us.
Yeah, because Jacqueline, who is watching, she even says, "How do you get over something that still goes on?" You don't. That's the whole point. Is you can't get over it if it's constantly in your face. If you're constantly being degraded or stereotyped, you don't get over it. You just don't. And we'll forever be in this conundrum of racism. If there's not an understanding that, yes, slavery happened. Yes, there is racism. Yes. If you don't get that, then there will never be an end to racism. There never will be, ever. I mean, point with all of that, you know, of what I said, you've got people that are trolling our show right now, you know, who are making a mockery of what we find to be a very serious conversation and a very serious matter, you know, and that's the ignorance that's out there. Yeah. That's the problem. You know, and I'm not going to go off on them and I'm not going to do all that. All I can say is that is part of the problem, you know, and it's happening right now as we speak. So I don't know.
And I think, you know, I mentioned it earlier, the bigger piece is that we have to start respecting ourselves as a people. Because I'll be honest with you, I need more respect out of our people first before I try to get respect outside. And it's no different than your house. You know, if you're in a house, if you have no one respects you in your own house, how can you respect somebody? How can you expect somebody to respect you? And it's really that's a really deep thought. Think about it. You're the man or woman of your house, and no one respects you in that house. And then you leave that house, and you wonder why you don't get respect outside the house. So you have to start owning in the respect value of your own.
Yeah.
And then you can worry about outside. And it's the process. This is something that, you know, unfortunately, years of bondage, years of splitting the family, years of stuff like blackface. You know, blackface, it was strategic in the way in which it came. It didn't come across as, oh, this is an entertainment venue. It was propaganda. You brainwash minds to make people think people I'll somewhat end on this. When I was in the military and I was in Romania, I never forget to this day. I walked into a club, and the image of black people, when I want you to think of when they saw me, who they represented, who was the representative for black people over in Romania, the part where I was at. I'll tell you, it was a rapper. See if you can guess.
Wow.
It was 50 Cent. 50 Cent.
Really?
When 50 Cent was blowing up, that's black. Seriously, they thought that black people, everyone, like I knew 50 Cent. You know 50 Cent, right? I'm like, no. You never met him? No. you know, but that was the image of black people in that part of Romania I was in was 50 Cent. I'm not to say that 50 Cent is a bad image, but I'm thinking they weren't being told or taught anything about black people in Romania that was remotely close to what we know in our current history. Their history was 50 Cent.
Wow.
So they thought you were a rapper, huh? Even though you had your uniform on, huh?
No, I had my uniform on.
Oh, you did?
I didn't have my uniform on, but
so they thought you were a rapper.
What I will say is, you know, when I went to a club, they just thought I was 50 Cent. So I'm like, wow. Well, not 50 Cent, but thought I knew him and thought, you know, can you rap? And I was like, no. You don't rap? I'm like, no. And they were saying his song verbatim. They didn't know English, but they knew his song, even with the N-word. And I'm looking like, what the, you know, and it's shocking to me because they don't see anything wrong with it. And how could they? How could they if they don't have the historical background or the context to really know the racism that we endured in the United States and as well as, you know, some parts of Europe?
Right. And you know what? I'm glad you even brought up the education, the history. Why is it, do you think, that our children today are not getting the true facts of their ancestry, their history?
We're not teaching it. I mean, the schools aren't teaching no more. Like when my daughter was in high school, I looked at her American history book. It was maybe like a half a page to almost a page, probably 3/4 of a page that was dedicated to Black history. That's where it is now. So you have to teach your children Black history. You know, the churches are doing a good job. I know at our church we do a lot of stuff in the month of February and year round to teach Black history. You have to teach Black history to your kids, okay? Because if you don't, they're not going to get it. You know.
But you know what? And I'm glad you said that because I totally agree. The problem is that you have young people now who have children who are now school age, and they don't even know the history. That's the disconnect.
And I think the other part, it's true and then it's false. And the reason I say it's false because it all depends on where you live at. Where some school districts actually, you know, teach more. Like, you know, you go to some parts of Baltimore City or DC, their curriculum may allow for a deeper understanding of Black history, where I'll use Charles County, for example. You're not going to get it unless they have African American history class. but you have to take a separate class outside of U.S. history. So it's a very small portion of I call the unpatriotic history that's in there, where you have to take an African American class. So it varies
But
from where you live at.
that's part of U.S. history. That's part of
history. I'm not negating that. What I'm saying is that the curriculum, and remember, we don't create the curriculum. The curriculum is created by a combination of a superintendent or a chancellor, the school board. There should be some parental input, but the demographics to some degree to determine what's in your curriculum. So if like when I got taught down south in Alabama when I was in 3rd grade, that's all I learned when I was down there, Black history. That's all I learned. I was in Birmingham. So if you're in, and I know in Virginia, they teach Virginia history, but I can tell you right now, they teach more about the Confederate side of it than they do about the Union side of it.
Right.
Hence, you got Lee High School, Jefferson Davis. You have more visuals of the Confederate heroes than you will of the Union heroes. So, not to say, history should be taught, but it should be taught in a truthful, meaningful, and sincere way. And I just don't think in most school systems they want to do that. And it's unfortunate you either have to Google it or go to college to really hear the truth, which I think is a disservice to our students, because, racism is learned behavior. Call it what you want, it's a learned behavior. So these kids, they're hugging, they're hey, high-fiving, and then somewhere down the road, someone is telling them, hey, here's blackface, what's that mean? So, that's why we have that fascination with blackface, because somewhere in their childhood, they were taught racism.
It's a sad world we have to live in. It really is.
You talk about in the state of Texas, the Department of Education in the state of Texas, they're trying to rewrite the whole history book to leave slavery out. They just want to move stuff out of the books that pertain to Black America and Black history,
And see, and that's what I think that bothers me most, because like I said, when Derek was making a point of taking a class that is African American based, you have to take an extra class. That's part of U.S. history. The average young person today who is in middle school, where they really start learning about history, the average middle schooler does not understand that this country was built on the backs of slaves. They don't understand that the White House that they see on television, or the flag that they see flying over their schools, that Washington was actually constructed by a Black man. They don't know any of this. And it's sad that the parents don't know. That's even more disheartening, and I don't get it. And that's U.S. history. And how do you separate Blacks from that history when we're the ones that built this country?
And when you look at something else too, we have media outlets that are not even doing a good job of promoting Black history during the year. Look at, honestly, because I don't look at a lot where, most of my stuff is around the news channels or either ESPN. But, I haven't seen anything, a lot of stuff on BET, a lot of stuff on TV One, or even a lot of stuff on Oprah's network. It seems like we can do a better job. We'll put reality shows on TV. We'll put baby mama drama shows on TV, but we won't put nothing on there that depicts Black history. There should be a show on each one of them channels coming on once a week for 52 weeks a year that talks about some facet of Black history. And we don't even have that. We don't even have a Black news outlet. TV One, Kathy Hughes got so scared, that she was going to lose her life, that she kicked Roland off her network. We don't even have that no more. When we had Roland, at least we had a voice.
Exactly.
We don't have that voice anymore. So I think we do a lot in our own community to to dumb down on Black history and dumb down on issues that affect our community. And
you know what? Yeah, and I agree with you. I agree with you. And I remember a few years back, I had a friend who was a white woman, and I was never so dumbfounded by what she told me. She told me, she says, we were talking about this very thing. And I was telling her, I said, we just don't see the true nature of Black history, either in the media or, in our newspapers, how it's depicted in our magazines, anything. And she said, and we were talking about slavery. And she said, oh, but why do we have to look at all that stuff? It's just so, it's so vicious, and it's so sad, and everything that was negative, and it was so hurtful. Exactly. That's the whole point. Sometimes you need to see the hurt for you to understand where we are and where we're going. You need to see some of the things that were going on. We see the little black and white sketches, of slavery days, and you see where, the slaves were on the auction block. You need to see the effects of when a slave ran. You need to see the different mechanisms that were put in place for punishment. You need to see all of these things for you to have a greater understanding that this shit happened. You have to stop whitewashing everything and be honest about who we are as a people and where we come from and how we actually made it in this country. You have to be honest. If you're not honest and willing to have an honest listening ear, an open ear and an open heart, then this shit is not going away. It will never go away.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point, because I had I called a debate with one of my conservative friends, and they're quick to say, well, the Republicans freed the slaves. I said, okay, I said, Republicans didn't necessarily free the slaves. I said, because sometime after the Civil War, when the war was over, there were white owners who didn't even free their slaves.
No, they didn't.
I said, let me go a step further. I was like, slavery may have been over, but they invented this thing called Jim Crow. What's Jim Crow? I said, Jim Crow said that you can now arrest blacks on bogus charges, put them in prison to further get free labor. You can take the land that they were given to by their master or whatever it may be and use it for whatever. You can do experiments on them. Tuskegee hint. You can look at their town, how it flourished, and go in there and make an accusation of rape and burn down the town, Tulsa. You can look at all the prominent land and the sense of community, and it can be totally destroyed, Rosewood, Florida. So there's a lot of things that are not taught in the history class. Believe me, there's hundreds and countless stories that you will not find in the history books.
And you won't find it in the history books. And you notice that every incident and event that you refer to were violent. They were murderous. Everything that you could do to get rid of a black man, that's what they were. But nobody wants to understand or listen to what true history is. Anytime, like says, you pick up a history book now, and you see a page and a half or maybe a half a page. That is not us. Show the pain. And then you'll understand why you can't call me a bitch in the street, or you can't call me a nigga, or you can't call me boy, or you can't call me gal. Know the pain to understand it. You have to.
But also, as you say that, we should not allow one another to do the same thing. That's why I have a problem.
Exactly.
We can say the word as an instructional, educational tool, but to clearly go out there and we do it in the music and all the other stuff, and we glorify it. We glorify it. So when you look at it, we're doing exactly what someone wants to do. So we don't need to call them, they do it themselves. We don't need to kill them, they kill themselves.
Exactly.
We don't sit back and relax.
That's why we are where we are economically, okay? That's why we're at the bottom of the economic ladder, because of the way we treat our own selves and treat each other in our communities, okay? You know, it would be nice to reconstruct the Black Wall Street, but we can't even come together to put two dimes together, buy a piece of candy without fussing over who's going to get the biggest piece of the candy.
No, because Jim Crow has told us.
Yeah.
He has told us how we should outlive our lives, you know, front and center. And we keep believing what he's saying. You know, Jim Crow has already told us who we're supposed to be. And why? Because he wants to keep us enslaved. This is just a different form of slavery, because we cannot do for ourselves in our own communities, form our own banks, our own schools, our own retail stores. We can't do shit because Jim Crow has said we cannot. Jim Crow says we cannot get along. We have to disavow one another. And we live by that. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate.
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox because I'm about to get hot.
we still got we've come a long ways, but we still have a long ways to go.
You're right. You're right. You are right. So do you guys, go ahead, Derek. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Because we are 3 minutes shy of our end. It went fast. It went really fast. And I would, you know what, and I know that you guys invite me to your shows. Thank you very much. Can we come back and talk more about this? Maybe do something that, you know, how Jim Crow affects, you know, the world we live in today.
And it really affects it. I mean, we have, you know, what's disappointing is that we can't come together to do simple businesses together, okay? You know, we have no value in being entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And that's where the other minority communities, the other communities of color, have a step up on us, because they have figured out how to become entrepreneurs and grow their communities. And we won't come together. You know, we just won't come together.
Maybe maybe that's a topic that, you know, for further discussion. Maybe next week is, you know, how can we come together as a people, you know, to bring about, you know, just to fix ourselves, fix our house is how we look at it. How can we fix our house? And so, you know, maybe that's a topic, but I do want to close on, and it has nothing to do with this topic, but, you know, I definitely wanted to pay condolences to a friend of mine that was in, you know, I met her along the campaign trail. Her name is Miss Merlene Hayes. She had passed away. When you talk about a strong Black woman, she told you like it was, like it is. And, you know, I truly appreciated, you know, her kind words, and even those words I needed to hear when I didn't want to hear. And I definitely appreciate it, especially from my elders. I respect my elders to the utmost. Even when I don't want to, I still respect them. And I just want to offer condolences to her family and to all the friends that had the glorious opportunity just to be around her. And she definitely will be missed.
Amen to that. Amen.
I agree with you, Derek, on that. I think the last time I talked to her, I was on the campaign trail doing the early voting. I ran into her over at Glen Eagles, and we had a long conversation. I hadn't talked to her in a long time, so it was good to see her and talk to her. You know, but yeah, that's a good subject next week. You know, just to figure out how we're going to build our houses right. You know, what we're going to do to get ourselves together in our communities.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, the house is built. We just got to fix it. It's built.
Exactly. And be serious about fixing it. You know,
rehab it. Something.
even told our neighbors, our other family members to fix it. You know,
Yeah.
you got to start bringing people in to our fixing, you know, because if you don't, you're going to fix yourselves, and then everybody else around you is still broken. So we've got to, we have got to make sure that we put that out for other people to do as well. You know, challenge one another to do better. You know, hold each other to a higher standard, and don't let go. Don't let go of it. You have to. All right, guys. I love being with two guys tonight. Thank you for having me. I shouldn't have said that. That didn't sound right, did it?
Well,
Yeah, you said it right.
she's in Vegas.
You said it right.
Sin
I'm a
City.
straight dad.
Sin City. So anyway, but thank you so much for tuning in tonight. You've been watching a real. Thank you, Jacqueline. She says, "Great show, guys." But you've been tuned in to Real World News TV with Reggie Kearney, and of course, our guest for the night, and hopefully he'll be coming back a whole bunch. Really enjoy having him, Mr. Derek Terry. So tune in next week to Real World News TV right here on Facebook under Real World News TV every Tuesday night at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 p.m. Central, and 8:30 on the East Coast. Make sure that you go on over to the website at hottopicstalkradio.com and find out more about the shows that you have missed. Find out more about the host and all of what we do here on the network. Also, make sure that you come on back tomorrow night under Hot Topics Talk Radio with me, Yvonne Baker, and Chris Smith. Oh boy, we got another crazy show lined up for you. So look for us tomorrow at 8 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 10 o'clock Central, and 11 o'clock on the East Coast. Oh boy. Oh, what else, Reggie? Let's see. Oh, catch up on all the past shows on YouTube as well. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get out of here. And again, thank you so much for tuning in to Real World News TV. And we will see you back here next week. Have a wonderful rest of your week and a fantastic weekend. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Peace and blessings.
Real World News TV, you are now clear. Good night, everybody.